Peace be with you. So I'm making this video today in order to try to explain why I even bother to make these videos, or why I feel the need to make these videos, why I don't just let preachers or imams deal with this. There's a lot of problems in what we consider Islam today, so I'm going to try to list a few of them and try to explain what's going on. When I quote unquote converted to Islam about 11 years ago, I used to be an atheist. I saw a lot of problems and I learned a lot of things that I just want to share with people because a lot of people may be faced with similar misinformation. I guess I'm trying to correct misinformation. And trust me, there is misinformation everywhere in Islam. Whether it's a person that hates Islam or a person that sincerely wants to be a Muslim, all of them may face huge amounts of misinformation, not only from the internet, but from the community surrounding them and from the imams in their mosques. One of the biggest things that I've seen so far in Islam is that it is broken into sects. Just like Christianity, it is broken into sects, and there are many sects and many different points of view, each claiming that they have the absolute truth and that people should obey their scholars, right? Just like in Christianity, or at least in the earlier times, a lot of people who call themselves Muslims believe their scholars to be absolutely without fault, and they believe everything that they are told. And this is not a good way. As a matter of fact, the Quran warns against this approach. As a matter of fact, the Quran, neither the Bible nor the Quran actually make a position for priests. There is no priestly class. There is no people who are perfect. That's just a fallacy. Unfortunately, most people who call themselves Muslims have never read the Quran. That was one of the first realizations I had. Once I read the Quran, it opened my eyes. I went from an atheist to a quote-unquote Muslim right away. I saw the truth, and I just started talking to people about it. So I went and I talked to people who I considered to be Muslims, and I realized by what they were telling me, I don't think they read the Quran. A lot of people would even tell me things that were absolutely not in the Quran, and they would say, yeah, this is in the Quran, this is what we have to do. A few months later, I realized that a lot of people follow hearsay. So they follow hearsay, they hear things, and then, from either their friends or their imams or whatever, and they just assume that that is in the Quran, that's where it came from, but it really hadn't. In Islam, there is an extra Quranic source of information which are called the Hadith, which basically translates to narrations. And these are stories that people assume Prophet Muhammad said, or at least they claim that he said them. Unfortunately, a lot of these stories contradict the Quran. So now you have this religion who claims that it is following the Quran, but actually follows texts that actually contradict the Quran in a lot of places. I'm not saying in all places, but in a lot of places. And people treat these texts as if they are the Quran, meaning they are infallible, and we have to follow what it says. And it's just mind-blowing that this situation even exists, why people don't even read the Quran. But as we see with the Bible, most people don't even read the Bible as it should be read, so a lot of people don't even know what is in the Bible. So this is not just a Muslim problem, it is a human problem. People claim that they have a book from God, but then they don't bother to read it. So honestly, they either are not very smart, or they are lying that they believe the book is from God. And if they don't believe the book is from God but never read it, how do you know the book is not from God? So that was my position. I used to think I knew what is in the Quran, and I used to judge the Quran by what I saw self-proclaimed Muslims do, but I never realized they weren't following the Quran. My life was, before I became a Muslim, was mostly street-based. I was around people that use drugs. I was around fornicators. I was around people who are selling drugs, and a lot of those people claim to be Muslims. After I read the Quran, I realized none of them were Muslims. None of us were Muslims. And unfortunately, this problem is a lot more widespread than my immediate group of people. Most communities that I've gotten a chance to meet have lots of people like that among them, and they all claim to be Muslim. So that is the first thing I wanted to address, is what it means. What does it mean to be a Muslim? So in current time, what the meaning this word took on is that you are basically an adherent to an organization. Just like Christian, it means that you are a part of organization and you can do whatever you want. Muslim means the same thing right now, but in reality, in its original meaning, the word Muslims mean a person who submits themselves to God, meaning they obey God, meaning they do what God commanded they do. And where can you find what God commanded? Where can you find what God commanded? That is the Quran. And the only way you can know what is in the Quran is if you read it. Now, there is a lot of people who believe that we are not to interpret the Quran as lay people. And I am a layperson. I'm not a priest. I have no official religious training, but I read the Quran, and I probably know more of it than a lot of priests and imams because they spend so much of their time reading Hadith and not reading the Quran. And although I have been reading Quran every day for the last 11 years, I always find something new in it. So I know you have to read it every day, and if you don't, you're not really doing it justice. As a matter of fact, there's a verse in the Quran that says, and the recitation in the morning is witnessed. Now, I don't know what that means, but I know I should probably read it and recite it in the morning. So that is how I read the Quran every day. And that helps. I get to learn the rules. I get to understand what God wants. That is a necessity in order to be a Muslim. If you don't know what God wants, how are you going to obey God? So you have all these people who are saying all these things about Islam, and a big one is you can't tell who's Muslim and who's not. You can't tell people they're not Muslim. So if you are raping a kid, and you say you're a Muslim, I'm gonna say you're a Muslim. And a lot of times people who make this claim that you can't tell people that they're not Muslims, they'll say, oh no, if they're raping a kid, of course they're not a Muslim. Well, that is because people take it upon themselves to draw the limits, wherein the Quran draws limits. So you have mosques that are full of fornicators that are condemning gay people, and God says that both are committing fawahisha, and both, meaning that's like immorality. So they're equated by the same word, and yet people don't realize that because they draw lines where they want to draw them and not where God wants to draw them. So that is a big problem in all of these organizations that call themselves Muslims. And I don't really see imams helping this or fixing this, and I can understand why though. So every time I've said this, all I get is a lot of hate by people who want to do what they want to do but still call themselves Muslims because it gives them benefits in their community, they're trusted or whatever benefit they may have. But the reality is, if you have a book that is the basis of your religion, and then you don't follow that book with everything you have, none of us are perfect, but if you are not putting forth 110% effort to follow the book, and everybody knows what kind of effort they put forth, then you have no religion. If the book is the basis of your religion and you're not putting forth this kind of effort, then you have no religion. You're just faking it. And that's the case with most Muslims. So most people who call themselves Muslims, who belong to the organization, who may donate to the organization, do not do what God commanded be done. And although they may call themselves Muslims, they really don't fit the description. A lot of times, people who are actually sincere in trying to obey God, they get turned away by the extra Quranic sources of information called the Hadith. And I'm not saying all of these books are wrong. What I'm saying is a lot of these narrations attributed to the Prophet Muhammad, they contradict the Quran. And the only way you're going to know if they contradict the Quran or not is if you study the Quran. So my recommendation to every person that is considering becoming a Muslim is you have to understand the Quran, you have to read it, and you have to have the confidence to understand that the basics are they are the mother of the book, as God says in the Quran. God says in the Quran that verses that are muhkamatum is the Arabic word, meaning they are of established meaning, they are clear, you know what they mean, they are the basis of the book. And the verses that are mutashabiha, these verses are allegorical of meaning that's not clear, and those people who have perversion in their hearts will take these verses and seek to give them their own interpretation, but only God knows their interpretation. So this is in chapter 3, verse 7. This means that if you put in work to read the Quran, you will easily recognize the verses that are muhkamatum, that are clear meaning. So for example, and your Lord has commanded that you shall serve none but Him, and goodness to your parents. If one or both of your parents reaches old age with you, do not say to them as much as uff, nor rebuke them, but address them with respect, and be humble towards them and say, my Lord, please have mercy on them, for they raised me when I was a child. So this is a clear verse. There's nothing in this world that there's no one in this world that should need an explanation of this. Moreover, if you translate this from Arabic, this was of course a translation. If you can translate this in any language, and it will retain its exact meaning, because all of us have parents, all of us understand these concepts, and they are easily translatable, easily relatable. So it's not that you're going to mistranslate the verses that are muhkamatum. You cannot mistranslate these verses. Unfortunately, a lot of scholars in Islam from various sects actually find narrations again that contradict the Quran, and they override the Quran, and they even override the clear verses. So for example, killing of apostates, that is based on a hadith where in the Quran chapter 10 verse 99 God says, if your Lord wanted it, all the people on the earth would believe, all of them. Are you going to force people to believe? And then the God also says, there shall be no compulsion in religion. And this is in chapter 2, I think it's verse 256, but I don't remember exactly. But God says, and there shall be no compulsion in religion. But as you can see, the scholars have taken something that's not the Quran and made a religion out of it. There's also, more extreme examples. For example, there's in certain parts of the world, there's female genital mutilation, and I don't know if that's based on a hadith or not, but people practice it. I think that's just on their cultural norms, but they incorporated it into Islam. These people call themselves Muslims, and a lot of times you hear on the news, this particular action being judged, but this is not Islam. This is just people's culture, and unfortunately, a lot of people present their culture as Islam, and I'll get to that in a second. There are also things like temporary marriages among some Muslims. Prostitution is what it is. Basically, they found a scholar that says if you give a woman, a certain amount of money, which is dowry, which you have to give in Islam, but you're gonna divorce her in 3 days. Basically, you get a 3-day prostitute, and that's what it is. They call the payment dowry, meaning your marriage payment, but in reality it is prostitution. They think they're fooling God on technicalities, but they're not. And whoever's unfortunate enough to get into these kind of sects, they will destroy their soul. And the reason why I say this is because a lot of Muslims believe that you are not supposed to read and interpret the Quran by yourself, that you're supposed to listen to scholars, even though scholars clearly contradict the Quran on so many levels. Not all of them, but many of them. So you have communities like, for example, my own, where people continue to commit sin, and yet they consider themselves Muslims, and they don't even care. It's not that they continue to commit sin, but they justify sin. Let's say you're an addict, and you're having a hard time with addiction, but you keep saying, I need to change this. Unless I change this, I'm going to be destroyed. That's one thing. But if you say God don't care if you smoke weed or not, God don't care if you drink or not, then you are already destroyed. You are a munafiq, you are a hypocrite, and you will never change. If that's what you believe, you won't change. And how are you gonna make it then? When we consider these problems in Islam, it becomes painfully obvious that more people need to be vocal about what is in the Quran. And that is why I make these videos, even though I'm a nobody, and I have my own struggles, I have my own problems. I'm certainly not perfect, but I just want to expose these things because these are the pitfalls that people, especially people who want to be sincere in Islam, they want to be sincere to God, they want to obey God sincerely, they're going to come across these people, they're going to be told all this information, and if they have no confidence, they are going to possibly be destroyed, just like that, even before they start. In the Bible, there is a warning about this, and the Quran, as a matter of fact. In the Bible, Jesus says he condemns the teachers of the law of Pharisees and tells them that they cross rivers and lakes to find a single convert, but when they do, they make him twice the child of hell they are. And in the Quran, what we are told is that blindly following your ancestors, or whoever, blindly following anybody is a sure recipe for damnation, because you never know who's telling you the information. If you are a Muslim, if you are considering converting to Islam, even if you hate Islam, I suggest reading the Quran, because the Quran is the religion. People are not the religion. The Quran is. And although people bring that book into life through their actions, just like the Constitution, for example, that is a book that has to be followed. And it is a timeless book because it deals with timeless issues such as our interaction with friends, family, our spouses, our children. It deals with things all of us will experience no matter what our social context is, such as honesty, commerce, uh, things like that. So God demands us to do the simple things, and the religions complicate things beyond belief. So that is why I want to kind of try to explain what I've learned through this journey, so people can maybe learn from my experience and not make, you know, not fall for these traps. I certainly don't tell anybody follow me, because I am a nobody, and there are certainly people out there with more knowledge than me. But these pitfalls are real. These wicked people are real. These uneducated people are real. These people who think that they are following God but are following just some nonsense are also real. And once you are exposed to such people, it's really hard to find out what's reality or not. This is why God calls the Quran Furqan, and this word Furqan means the criterion between right and wrong. So if you don't want to be led astray, read the Quran and then maybe listen to people. But the first thing you should do is really learn the Quran, read it as much as you can, and once you know it, you will at least be able to ask questions if you are told things that do not appear to agree with it. So that's all I wanted to say.